Welcome to the Bike Talk with Dave podcast. I'm your host, Dave Mabel. Thanks for tuning in. Now, before we get into today's episode, I've got to tell you some exciting news from Core 4, an August 17 race where no surface is left untouched. Trust me, I've got a great deal for you. If you use the code CORE4BikeTalk at checkout, and that's the numeral 4, don't spell it out, CORE4 Bike Talk at checkout, the first 14 people to do so will get a 14% discount on their full-priced entry, plus Core 4 will match that amount to support this very podcast. So you're getting 14% off, and Bike Talk with Dave is getting 14%. I love it, and I'm super thankful to you and Core 4. So I will give you permission right now to pause this episode, as long as you promise to come back, and head over to core4.bike. You can sniff out the details there and get registered. We'll have more on that great race after the show. Okay, let's get back to this episode. A couple of weeks ago, I was invited to join the Mazda Orange Seal team at Unbound. I'd follow along, snag some video the day before the race, and then shoot the race, mostly at the pit stops at the aid stations. It was a blast. It was very cool to be hanging out in the garage while the bikes were being tuned, tires readied, each rider prepping their food for the 200-mile race the next day, filling water bottles, sorting food, even taking some time to give instructions for a fast and efficient pit to the crew of 4. And of course, the next day, I was up at 4 a.m. with Eno Zavdyalov, whose race began before 6 a.m. It felt like old times at Cyclocross World Cups and the photographer scrum before the race. But we saw Eno off, and about 20 minutes later, the elite women took off, which included on the Mazda Orange Seal team, Marissa Boaz, Jenna Reinhardt, and Danielle Ravnikar. John Hart, the director of the team, and we hopped into the car to chase them around the countryside. It was quite a day. In fact, I'll try to weave together both the podcast and a short video of the day in and out of the pits. It was crazy. We were trying to chase 4 riders around on a 200-mile gravel race. It was super challenging. Did we miss Eno? Have the women gone through here yet? Did you see Danielle? Did Marissa have a bike issue? These were some of the million questions we'd have as we chased them around. John and I were always trying to stay ahead, but it felt like we were always behind. So in the final pit at mile 149, we got Marissa out on the road with everything she needed, but we hadn't seen or heard from Danielle. We had no idea how far behind Marissa she actually was. And interestingly, Eno was having the race of his life and had led coming into 100 miles with Chase Wark. Yes, a veteran of Bike Talk with Dave, alumni I should say. It was super exciting to have those two off the front for so long. So, with those two off the front, of course they weren't after 149 miles, but they were still up there and having a great race. So John and I were trying to chase them and beat Eno to the finish line. And just as we were about to leave, Danielle rolls up to the pit stop. And to be honest, she was not having a good day at this point. It was a rough pit. And John finally decided that she was in good hands and that she would take a bit of a rest and figure out if she was going to go on or quit. So it was time for John and I to leave. Fast forward to the finish line. And crazy as it was, I had a commitment 8 hours north to shoot a triathlon on Sunday morning. So after Marissa finished and not knowing if Danielle had continued on or quit, I hopped in my car and began the next leg of my weekend up to the Pigman Triathlon north of Cedar Rapids. It was only later that I had heard that Danielle had actually pulled it together and knocked out those last 50 miles. And I'm like, I gotta hear this story. So I reached out, and she was kind enough to join me on a call just a few days after Unbound. And this is awesome because not only does she have a great Unbound story, the story of her becoming a professional cyclist is equally interesting. It's definitely an unconventional road to Unbound. So I think it's time for me to shut up and let her do the talking. So without further ado, Danielle Ravnikar. Danielle, good to see you again. You look much more refreshed than the last time I saw you, which was at mile 150 of Unbound. Welcome to Bike Talk with Dave. I'm glad we could find time to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk today.
You've had, I don't know, kind of an exciting year, a lot of transition. And honestly, you know, I typically write down some notes and do some research into people's past and yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But your story is like so compelling and interesting. I kind of just want to hear it from you and, you know, find out what led you to mile 149.9 of Unbound and maybe beyond. Should we keep that as a suspense?
Yeah, I think we have to.
Okay, fair enough. So I am going to kind of open the conversation with your background. And in high school, you found dance. You found that you enjoyed it and were pretty good at it. And then living in the Twin Cities, somebody made a suggestion, I don't know, half a dozen years ago or so, for you to try out for the Minnesota Vikings cheer squad. What's that all about? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, grew up a dancer my whole life. That was what I was passionate about, so that's what I dove into 110%. I was never allowed to do competitive dance as a child because my parents, they didn't think sports were good for kids. They wanted us to go up to the cabin, to experience life, to experience like working with our hands and being involved in nature. But I always had a passion for dance. So when high school sports came around, I got the opportunity to try out. And I actually had a friend's parent who told me, "You will never make varsity. You didn't do studio your whole life. You don't have the talent. So don't even try."
This is high
And I,
school, like high school? Dang, it's
this is
pretty
going into
cutthroat.
my freshman year. I know. I mean, the school I went to, the dance team was so competitive, and making varsity was a huge deal. So at that point, I just said, "Hey, watch me." And I put in a ton of work, and I made varsity my freshman year and just shocked everyone. But I didn't expect it. I just worked really hard for it. And that's kind of been my whole mentality with sport is if I want something, I'm going to put all my eggs in that basket to do it. So because of that mentality, when I was asked like, "Oh, are you ever going to try out for the Viking cheerleaders?" I was like, "No, that's not even something I'm considering. I'm very focused. I want to do collegiate dance." So that was kind of on my mind for the longest time. Didn't even want to think about Vikings. But then at the end of collegiate dance, I had won a national championship. I was a captain for that team. And I was realizing dance was coming to an end. And I wasn't ready for that. So at that point, I was like, uh-oh, I think I'm going to try out to be a Vikings cheerleader now. And I did. And I was on it for 3 years.
Oh, that's crazy. What's that like? I understand the rules around NFL cheer squads are pretty strict. Yet the pay is not, you're not buying luxury houses on Lake Minnetonka with the pay from the cheer squad, unless
Mhm.
things have changed from last I understood. But what's life like as a cheerleader for a professional football team?
Yeah, you have so much going on being a part of this team. Their first requirement is you have to be a full time employee or a full time student to even be considered. So, clock in 40 hours of just a day job right there. On top of that, you're required to stay on top of your fitness. So, for a lot of us, that meant I would go to the gym at 5 a.m. every single day, do either weights or cardio, something to stay in that like fitness that they wanted. And then on top of that, we had practices 3 days a week for 3 hours. And the weekday ones were 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Usually we would go late to 10 or 10:30. So you're not even getting home until 11:30, and then trying to wake up the next day to get back in the gym. Game days, we would have to show up at 6 a.m. was our call time at the stadium, fully ready to go for game day. And we would usually leave the stadium around 4 p.m. So that was just an insanely long day. And then to round it out, on top of all of that, you had to do appearances. So you might be sent to the children's hospital to meet with kids there one day, and then the next day you're going to a bar in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, to sign calendars and meet with fans there. So our schedule was just packed.
How long did you do that?
3 years.
That's crazy. That's hard work.
It was very draining, but you think you want it so much in the moment that you don't care.
Huh. Uh, is that just during the season?
Yes, and season would be from April would be auditions, and then we would end around Super Bowl time, so February. But I don't think our contract ended until the end of March, so we had a month off.
Woohoo. And the pay
I
was
know.
great.
Yeah, minimum wage really got you through everything, and that was just hours on. So that never included driving or prep or your own workouts. That was just like when you were with the Vikings.
Huh. Wow. Did you enjoy that? I mean, you did it for a handful of years, three, I believe. Is that right?
Yep, I was with them for 3 years. And the memories I have from this time, I hold really close to my heart because I wanted it so bad at that time and I loved it. But if someone told me today, hey, do you want to come back and do this again? I would very quickly say no. I'm good.
Been there, done that.
Yes.
Um, what are some of the fondest memories you have from that time?
I mean, the first one is you do not beat standing 2 feet away from the white line on the field on game day. That view of the game, I wish everyone could experience. It's just so special. And the Vikings did do a really good job of different types of games. And my absolute favorite one was Salute to Service, where we honored the military. And that game just had so many special moments that like gave you chills throughout the whole time. So it's really like the things like that that get me, where you're honoring someone else, you're giving to people, and just being able to like do what I was passionate about and dance and perform. That was just like a little extra.
Huh, that's cool. Did you grow up a football fan?
I don't know if I should admit this, but no.
Did you know what the
um,
Minnesota Vikings were? I mean, did you follow them at all?
I knew who they were. My family did not watch football. We were up north at our cabin hanging out in the woods.
Dig it, dig it. Did you become a fan? You can say, you can
I,
lie.
I don't don't need to lie. I don't think I'm a fan still. Like, when I transitioned into cycling, I'm spending 5 hours on a bike on Sunday. I'm not sitting down in front of a TV watching a football game.
Yeah.
And I've always been that way. I would rather be doing the thing than watching the thing.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I get that for sure. What got you out of it? The cheering.
Yeah, 3 years felt like a good amount of time. And I kind of started to realize that every year was going to be the same in terms of what you're doing for the team, what they want from you. And I really like growth and pursuing like higher levels of myself. And as soon as I realized I was kind of stagnant in that, I was like, okay, this is probably a good time to be done.
Dig it. And I mean, we met at Unbound, so something led you to cycling. How did you end up finding the bike?
Yeah, so again, in my life, whenever I say I'm never going to do something, I, for some reason, end up doing it. And my best friend from high school, her parents were very into cycling, into mountain biking specifically. And they always told me whenever I was over there, they would say, "We don't mean to be weird, but you have really great quads and you should consider cycling." And I'm like, okay, that is weird. And I don't think the bike is for me. Like, I think my last bike I had, I was 12.
Wow.
So they're like, you know what? Can we just get you set up with a mountain bike and like you can see if you like it? And I was like, okay, sure. So I got this $800 mountain bike, which I thought was just the most expensive thing. And I just started riding. And every day I would do 10 miles and then 12 and then 15 and then 20. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going so far. This is incredible. And that like idea of growth and where I can go and take myself in the sport just like opened up a passion I didn't know I had.
When was this? When did you buy that $800 bike?
This was about a month after being done with the
And
Vikings.
what year was that?
2020.
Oh, you and everybody else on Earth bought a bike.
Yeah, I guess I'm one of them.
Well, you kept it. I know there's a lot hanging in the garage now collecting dust. Not yours. Yours is collecting dust in a different way for sure.
Oh yeah.
Were you living in the cities at the time?
Yes.
Were you mountain biking or just on like paved trails or road? Where were you riding? Where did you do those 10, 12, 15, 20 miles?
Yeah, I would take it on the road and then go on single track and just be the worst mountain biker out there.
For sure. You actually had an article by Betsy Welch of Velo this spring, which I thought was kind of interesting. You said you don't have to have been on a bike since you were 8 to know it and to love it. Interesting sidebar. We are chatting on a Wednesday, and Wednesdays is when Bike Talk with Dave drops. And I just dropped an episode with a dude, Cade Bikemore, who has been racing since he was 8. So when I read that, I had to laugh. I was like, well, here is the exact opposite juxtaposition. Somebody who was racing at 8 and somebody who said, you don't have to race at 8 to be totally into it. But you just lined up on the elite starting line of Unbound, which is, not even arguably, is the biggest race in the U.S., one of the biggest races in the world, and definitely the biggest gravel race in the world. And you're riding with the Mazda Orange Seal team. And by the way, thank you for all of your hospitality this last weekend. So you did something to essentially fast forward all of that experience that Cade has been developing since he was 8. How did you fast forward? How are you fast forwarding that base of experience, that base of knowledge that that 10,000 hour rule states?
Yeah, I think this is very interesting. And from an outsider perspective, no one's going to see what I'm doing to get to where I want to be. I spend so much time figuring out these little details that I either want to work on or polish or get better at in my, yeah, behind closed doors pretty much. So I recognize something that I'm not the best at, something I need to get better at, and I go train it myself. I'll spend a half hour just riding through a volleyball pit of sand
Hmm.
to practice getting better at sand. And then I know like descending for a long time was I got extremely scared anytime I had to descend. So I just brought myself to a hill and I love climbing it, but then I would make myself descend it and not touch my brakes. And I just do this to myself and practice the repetition. And then I get comfortable and then I get a little better. And then I find the next thing. And it's just like repeating that cycle and knowing that I'm never going to be perfect at it, but I can grow every single day.
Dig it. Oh gosh, I had 4 good questions in there that I was going to ask. Um, what do you? This isn't even one of them. I'm making this up on the fly because I don't know. It'll help me fill the time and think of what I was going to ask because they were so profound. I'm sure. Um, what do you enjoy? Like, what part of cycling do you enjoy and look forward to doing? Because you must look forward to some piece of it because I mean you've dove in head first.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite part about cycling is the effort and how I can absolutely drain myself in a race or an event, and just the satisfaction I get that I can do that and I can push my limits. It's, I don't know what it is, but you start craving that feeling more. And then you're telling people, hey, I want to go do this race where I might die. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, it's so fun.
Are you saying Unbound was fun yet?
Unbound was one of the best race experience I've had yet. And that's saying a lot considering how my race went.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to Unbound because I remembered what I was going to ask. You're mountain biking, you're riding through sand, you're descending, all require um, a, a real mind body connection, right? You have to have a real sense of your body movement, your balance, where your arms are, legs are, feet are, and how they all relate to each other. Do you feel like your dancing has been a big part of your ability to fast forward that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's not even from the sense of having that body connection in the moment. It's being able to recognize what's happening and then taking that information back to my coach and being like, hey, I feel a more of a hamstring pull when I'm doing this. Is that normal? Should I be working on engaging quads more? And we can have an educated conversation about how to do power placement. So things like that we can just dive right into it instead of being like, well, we don't know what's going on. Just keep riding and hopefully you figure it out.
Right. Do you feel the dance moves when you are navigating that volleyball court of sand?
Honestly, no. It's such a different movement pattern that's going on. But I do think being able to engage different muscle groups is probably what I experienced the most from dance to biking, because I'm able to mentally turn on and off biceps to triceps or quads to hamstrings And I think that is something not a lot of people can feel. So being able to just like navigate your muscle groups is very important and maybe a little leg up on other people.
You use the word power, and I know based on our discussion at Emporia and what your friend told you, who noticed your quads or whatever, you have power, right? Um, Tell me about how your power numbers led you to getting a call from John Harp and joining the Mazda Orange Seal team, because I feel like your 30 years of cycling experience is not why he called. It's your quads, your power numbers, your ability to put down some watts. Tell me about that kind of relationship between power, uh, moving into the elite level, and how you build on power, because cycling is so much more than just throwing down watts. Um, it's about the dance moves, and it's about navigating sand. It's about being able to descend. It's also about, you know, going elbow to elbow with 100 other women going as fast as they possibly can down a gravel road. So talk to me about that relationship and how your power numbers led you to being on Bike Talk with Dave, which I know is the epitome of anyone's athletic career.
Yeah, the power is an interesting topic to me because I don't think I'm doing anything special in the power realm. I see my numbers, I know what they are, I know what my zones are, but I try not to tie myself to this is good, this is bad, this means something, this doesn't. So when I shared my power with John, when we were in the early stages of talking about potentially being on the team, his reaction shocked me. He was like, "Do you know like that this is really good?" And I was like, "No. No one has ever told me that."
Well, your
And
friend said she liked your quads.
well, okay, but they didn't have my
Fair enough.
numbers.
Fair enough. There's a relationship there, though.
Right. But I think that's really good for me to just separate from the good and the bad of power and just know that I still think I have so much more potential to increase my fitness and ability in that sense. And that's the only thing I think about. And then when I share these numbers with people that want to see them, need to see them for some reason, they can do with it what they want.
Dig it. How you're strong. How are you translating that to riding elbow to elbow with 100 other women going as fast as they can down a gravel road?
Yeah, so this is where I think the power is the benefit to me, where I can do things in a race where some people can't. And I experienced this on the road a lot more, and this is where I saw it first, racing in Europe last year. I could drop myself out of a pack and float 10 feet behind everyone and still make it to the finish with some of the best. And people would watch that and go, first of all, what are you doing? And second of all, how are you doing that? So I think the potential of what's going to happen when she's in the pack saving her energy just blew people's minds. And I think still today, on gravel, because I'm new, because I'm learning this new terrain, I'm going to be a smart athlete and purposely separate myself to not end my day on like a sketchy descent where someone might crash in front of me. And I'm still going to be able to make that move to get back to where I need to be because of my fitness. So it's a big benefit in that way. And it confuses a lot of people. And I kind of like that. Like, I'm not going to do it how I should, and that's okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you feel like you're getting better at doing the elbow to elbow thing?
Oh, absolutely. Every race, I feel like I get 1% better. And that's all. If I'm improving, that's great. If I was not improving, that'd be a different conversation.
So you raced road, you even been to Europe. Why transition to gravel?
The thing I missed most when I was in Europe and racing in pelotons was I never liked finishing a race and being like, but I never got to put out a good effort.
Oh, sure.
So I love the grit, the mental strength, the power that you have to have just to simply start a gravel race. So it's like, okay, I think that's where I need to be.
What was your first gravel race?
Ever?
Yeah, ever.
I think it's Epic Bike
Oh,
Fest
sure.
in Hayward,
Yep.
Wisconsin. And I'm actually going back for my third year this Saturday.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I knew a bunch of you guys were heading up to that. I know it's a favorite of the Midwest for sure. Love the
Yes.
Cable Hayward area. In fact, I saw a picture of you finishing Schwamigan last year before,
2022, yeah.
2022. Did you enjoy Schwamigan? That's a 2022. So last year was 23. Oh, that was wet.
That was the year it started downpouring at mile 10.
Pouring.
So, yeah.
Pouring. Oh my gosh. Um, uh, okay, so you've been racing gravel for a little bit, and this year you end up on the Mazda Orange Seal team. And your first race with them was Valley of Tears in March. How'd that go for you?
That was a really good race. I got fifth, which was great, and two of my teammates got fourth and second. So it was a great first showing for our team for the year. That race at the time was my longest ride or race ever at 115 miles. So I was a little nervous what was going to happen in those quote unknown miles, but I felt really good and I was probably a bit conservative because when I crossed the line, I felt like I could keep going, and that's not a good sign.
You had too much in reserve, spend it all
Yeah.
out on the course, which I feel like you did. We met last Friday in Emporia, the evening before your first Unbound, and Unbound was then the furthest you have ever potentially ridden. Did you do Gravel Locos?
No.
100. Oh no, you did 100. Tell me about your longest ride prior to Unbound.
Yes. So it was just a week and a half before Unbound. I did a 150-mile training ride with my teammate Jenna on very, very flat, chill gravel roads. So no terrain considerations were even in that.
You did not jump into the fire. You found a spewing volcano and were just dropped from a helicopter into the center of it at Unbound, then, relatively speaking. Holy moly. Um, what were your emotions going into this 200-mile uh, monster gravel race?
Yeah, I feel like I felt one extremely nervous just because I was going to go 52 miles more than I ever had, and I didn't know what was going to come with that. On top of that, I had a concussion the month before, so my Unbound training was actually just a week and a half of training,
Oof.
and it was not what we wanted, me and my coach, but we were like, you know what? This happened for a reason. You just got to roll with it. Like, you're going to show up how you show up.
100%. That's all we can do, isn't it? Um, what was it like standing on that starting line?
That start line, I will never forget. The way it wasn't even the people I was standing next to, which all incredible athletes, like, just I'm honored to be able to start with women like that. But when we rolled up to the start, the way the media people just like swarmed in front of us, it was insane. There had to have been at least 100 people with cameras, just hearing the clicks, seeing the flashes, and just standing there and thinking, am I doing something really special right now?
100%. I thought the same thing. I've shot bike races for a number of years, covered cyclocross with CX Magazine, and I, I remember uh, national championships 2014 in Boulder, Colorado, and that pre-race scrum at the starting line. I'm like, whoa, this is like, I have to fight for my place to get the shots I want at this starting line. And to be honest, like that's the most I've shot world championships and world cups and all that, and it's never been like that one day in at the Valmont Bike Park in Boulder until Unbound. I was like, holy smokes, this is a battle. Like I have my camera up focused on, let's say, you and your pre-race smile, and like somebody would literally bump me out of the way as my fingers on the trigger and stand in front of me to hunt down their shot. Like people were brutal and rude, and it was easily 100 people. So I'm with you on that. That was a major media monster right then and there. It was crazy. So I can relate. I'm having the same feelings. I'm like, holy crap! Like this is a thing. Um, Helicopter overhead, announcers blaring, music blaring. 1 minute, 30 seconds, 20 seconds. What are you thinking?
Yeah, at that point, I was just so dialed in and ready to go. I think all I was doing was envisioning like the first sections of the road and knowing where I wanted to be in the pack and just telling myself, like, you can do this.
John mentioned at your pre-race meeting about how this is I forget how he put it. I'm going to have to, in fact, I'm going to just like loop his little audio thing in right here.
As far as this race goes, I mean, this is. I think I was joking with Eno. It's like this is the most overthought event that I've been involved in all of the days of cycling and all of the things I've ever done. In all of the other sports, this is the most overthought deal, and in some ways it makes it fun and all that. But in some ways, at the end of the day, this is just a bike race, and I think that in the end, that's all your brain needs to let it be.
Was it a relief to just get off that starting line and start riding your bike?
Oh, absolutely. Just the prep was done. No more thinking about all the ifs, ands, or buts. Just go.
At what point did it just feel like another bike race to you?
Honestly, when the gun went off, yeah,
Like, here we go. This is it. And I know how to do this.
right. If you overthink anything in the moment of when you're starting a race, you're in the wrong mental space. You just have to be in the moment. This is what's happening right now. How am I dealing with this?
Um, it is a little different than, you know, Valley of Tears in that all of the world's best women are on that starting line. How was it riding out of town and hopping on gravel in the first 20, 30 miles with them?
The first 20 miles were probably the worst of the race. And it's simply because I don't know what it is about the women's field, but the sketchiness and the like twitchiness on the bikes is still prevalent here as it was in road, but you do that on gravel and you're gonna cause a problem. So in the first 15 miles of the race, I was already in 2 crashes and had to chase back onto the group, watching my watts be at 400 plus, going, oh no, I have 200 miles and I'm burning matches, like just handing them out like candy right now.
I've never heard that expression, but I love it. Um, uh, where'd you settle in? Like, were you able to settle in at some point, and where was that?
Honestly, no, because of what was happening and those 2 big efforts I had to put in, I never felt like I was in the pack conserving like I had planned. It was, okay, how are we going to switch this? How are you going to race this now that things are different and this is just the cards you've been handed?
So, what was your strategy? How'd you adapt?
I just knew I had to burn those 2 big matches to get into the pack to potentially stay there as long as I could. So once I got there for the second time, it was really back off, use the people, but also now don't be afraid to do it, and that you're going to be in yet another crash, because when something happens, your brain starts to rewire. So yeah, it was just at that point, hang on, try to hang on.
We were at mile 70, and I will say it was super hard to chase all you guys. Eno, your teammate, got a 20-minute head start racing with the elite males, and was charging off the front. He actually was in the lead with Bike Talk with Dave veteran Chase Warwick, which was super cool. Like those, it was super fun chasing those 2 around. And so, like, we literally had to leave. John and I had to bolt in order to get one tiny photo shoot and then get to the next aid before Eno got to the next aid. It was super hard. I figured in 200 miles I'd have 1,000 shots of you guys, but we literally stopped twice for photos. But regardless, so I didn't see you at mile 70. How was your aid at 70? Were you still feeling good? Were you starting to feel the matches that you'd burnt? Were you able to kind of regroup there and at that point settle in?
Yeah, at that point, I had been alone for about 20 miles and I was catching packs and using them, but then also dropping them. So I was like doing this bunny hop thing, but my legs felt so good. So I was very confident that I could continue this throughout the race and make up time. When I got to the aid station, I was told that Marissa, my teammate, was only 2 minutes in front of me. I was like, that's great. I'm going to find Marissa and we're going to use each other. And like, that was my game plan. The feed itself went so smooth. Everything that they needed to do was being done. I got new gloves, like got ice socks, a new backpack, food in the pocket. And this was the first aid station I've ever done like this in my life. So I'm like, okay, like we're good. Feels good. My bike was checked.
How long were you
I
there?
was ready.
Guessing.
I didn't time it. I don't know. Maybe like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe. I tried to make it really
Yep.
short.
Yep.
So
It was probably
yeah,
1 minute. It feels like 4, but I bet you it was only 1. Just
yeah,
having
maybe
watched
I
them, like you guys are in and out of there. It was impressive.
Yeah, so I thought it went so smooth as I was rolling out of that.
What was the next section like? 70 to 150. 150 is the next aid. How'd that go for you? And I know a bit of the ending of this story, so uh, um, I'm anxious to hear your story.
Yeah, those 80 miles felt like 4 different days, I think. just so many things happened that it felt like it couldn't have just been 4 hours. But the first thing, I'm a mile out of the aid station. I go to drink out of my backpack. The nozzle pops up,
Oh,
and I have Morton mix, so a very sticky mix in my backpack. It's just pouring all down me, onto my handlebars, seeping into my gloves. And I didn't have the mental capacity to just be like, oh, just kink the hose and make it stop to get it back on. It's just pouring. So I pull over and like slam the nozzle back on, and I probably lost 25% of my pack of fuel, of hydration. And in that moment, I was like, it's fine. You're going to be fine. You have bottles on your bike. Just keep going. Like, stay positive. Don't let this affect you. Like, if this is the worst thing that happens today, you're good. So I get back on my bike. I'm rolling. And like maybe 2 miles later, I'm like, okay, I'm going to use some water from my plain water bottle to just hose off my bars and make them less sticky. I reach down and grab it, and it comes up super fast. And I look at it, it's empty. And I look down at my frame. Both my bottles weren't changed in the feed zone, so they're just no water. And in that moment, I think my jaw just dropped, and I was like, oh no.
oh.
Um,
Where are you?
so that's
75. This is
the
5 miles after the aid?
yeah, this was just it right after it.
Yikes. So you've got 75 miles to go on 3/4 of a bladder in your back of just.
Yeah, I probably had 55 ounces on me.
Yeah. And did you feel good coming in? Like, were you like, my body's great. I feel good at 70.
I felt so good. And I knew I could push my pace to start catching people. And when I realized that I had to make it 75 miles with 55 ounces, I said, you have to totally rein back power, conserve. You do not want to end up in a ditch because you passed out because you went too hard.
Yeah, dig it.
That was
There is a place to get water halfway in between, wasn't there?
Yes, it's at mile 113, I think.
Okay.
So I knew I had to stop at that to get something. But at mile 75, that's still very far away.
Yeah, you're right. 75, 25, 35, 40 miles, 40 miles on. Yeah. So did you stop there and tank up?
I did, and that was very helpful just to have something. But by the time I got there, mentally, I was already like half gone.
Well, the race is half over, so I guess that's good. What about the next section from there to the next aid, which was at approximately mile 150?
Yeah. I still was feeling like at that point, I just didn't have it in me. And I was fully convinced I was going to drop out at the aid station. I felt really bad. I was starting to get nauseous. I was getting like dizzy and lightheaded. So I was like, if you can make it to 150, you can be done. That was my mentality.
Wow.
And that was my only goal at that point. And randomly throughout, maybe at mile 120, I came across a girl who was in my field who was like swerving down the road. And as I was passing her, she goes, do you have a phone? I need to call my dad. I'm going to pass out. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? So at that point, I just turned into like bike race off. I need to help this person. So I was with her for about 10 minutes trying to help her. So that added time, but you can't be a bad human no matter what. So I don't regret doing that at all.
I mean, you weren't in the lead group at that point, so being a good human is more important than 10 minutes of your life.
Right.
Um, Especially when you're thinking like, I get to mile 150 and I'm done. Like then
Mhm.
who cares how long it takes? Was she fine?
I saw that she finished the
Oh,
race,
wow.
so she must have been able to get it together, but yeah,
Huh.
I don't know. I had to leave her at some point because I wasn't going to wait for her dad to come in a car.
Right. Right.
Um,
Huh.
so I actually left her with someone else who had a crash and they were waiting. So I was like, okay, you guys wait together and I'm going to go.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So tell me about 8 at 150. I saw you come in there and honestly, I didn't think you'd leave.
Yeah, that that was very rough. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I will say I have apologized to everyone who was in that feed for anything I did say and don't remember because I really don't know it all I said. But I do remember coming in, dropping my bike, and everyone was trying to like start doing their feed zone stuff to me. And I just put my hands up and I was like, stop, listen. And they just all got wide eyed. And I was like, no one changed my bottles. I had no water. Something needs to change right now or I'm not finishing. That was like my speech I gave. And
Verbatim. I was,
it
yes,
was
that's exactly what you said.
great.
Yes. Um, John sat you down, said, listen, get in the shade, drink, take your time, and get yourself together. You wanted to finish this race. He's reminding you, get it together and get on your bike and roll out of here when you're ready. No hurry, just recover and go. And then again, Eno's on his way to the finish line. Um, and we had to get going. So we bolted. I didn't think you'd get up out of that chair and get back on your bike, to be honest. I honestly didn't. I don't know who told me later that you finished, but I was like, seriously? Oh my gosh, that's a good story. How in the hell did you get back on your bike and go?
Yeah, I think the idea of not completing a goal that I set for myself was far worse than what could have happened in those last 50 miles. And I think going back to my roots as a dancer, you do so many things when you don't feel good, when you don't want to do it, when you're in pain, but your body is so capable. It's your mind that you have to convince. So, like, my body was not in a good place, but mentally, I was like, it doesn't matter how you do this, but you're going to finish this.
How long did it take you to get to that point mentally? Because when I saw you sit down, you were like, I'm quitting. Like that's a 180-degree transition from I'm quitting to I'm gonna do this. How did you do that?
Yeah, I actually got up and I was like, I don't care, I'm using the porta potty. Like, I don't know what that was about, but like my big fear for the day was I'm gonna have to pee on my bike. And I don't ever want to do that. So when I went to the bathroom, I was just like, okay, get yourself together. Like, you can do this. It's fine. Just go. So I think my porta potty moment was the changing moment because when I came back to the tent, I was like, okay, where's my bike?
Wow, that's kind of funny. That's cool. So the porta potty provides enlightenment.
It does. Yes. 150 miles in, I think you just have to find one and take 30 seconds.
That's awesome.
That's it.
How was that last 50 miles?
Yeah. First of all, leaving the aid station at 150, I had a girl from Minnesota who was feeding someone else who took a video of me leaving the aid. Everything looks great. Like, from the video perspective, like, I look strong, I look happy. I'm like, just doing the thing. And I think that is so important to remember with media in general. What you see is like not always 100% true. Like I was still so not okay, but the way I was presented, it was like, she's good. So I just think that's funny to like see that and be like, okay.
The camera lies.
It does. But hey, that might be another dance cheerleading thing because we had to smile through everything.
For sure.
So yeah. But yeah, leaving that aid station, I had to change my mentality again. And I told myself, Danielle, just go 12 miles every hour and you're going to make it to the finish. If I thought of 50, I couldn't do it. If I thought of 12, that felt doable. So what I would do is I had a screen on my Garmin that just had the time and my power, and then another screen that had the distance. So I knew what distance it was leaving the aid station, and I just watched the clock. And when it hit an hour mark, I toggled back to it and saw that I went 16 miles. And then I got really excited and I was like, goal achieved. I did more than what I wanted. And I was like, okay, this is great. Set a new goal, 12 more miles. And then I did that again and again, overachieved it. And that that got me to the finish.
What was it like coming around that final corner?
Well, it's so dumb to me. That last hill, everyone talked about being so hard, like you're gonna want to walk it. I felt so good going up that hill, like so strong, no problem. And I was like, that sucks. Yeah, but then coming around the last corner, I couldn't even appreciate finishing the line because they separated our corrals from 200 and 100. There was a guy in the 100 who like started racing me down the final sprint. And I'm just looking at him like, you don't know what happened today. Stop doing this.
Right. You don't have to
So,
beat me. Nobody in the world cares.
yeah, so my finish, I didn't even get to appreciate the like, you did it. I'm just watching this guy going, you for real right now?
Oh, that's kind of funny. When did it hit you that you just done 200 miles of remote Kansas gravel?
I don't know if it has hit me yet, to be honest. I didn't get that feeling of like, whoa, look at what you just did. But what I did get was when I looked at my phone and saw it was 6 at night, I was like, what? It is 6 o'clock? And like everyone supporting our team was like, yeah, you just did 200 miles. And I was like, that's a long time.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah.
That is a long time. Are you happy with your day? Are you disappointed with your day? Are you content? Where are you in reflection of your day?
I think with how my day went, I am so proud of myself for just finishing the race. You can sit and think about all the things that shouldn't have happened, that could have happened, the things that would have changed your race for the better, but that didn't happen. So I'm not going to sit and think about that. I'm just going to really be proud of how I encountered a lot of not ideal things and still cross the line at the end.
Is there anything that you would do different? Any way you would react differently in the future? Or are you like, I played the cards best I had and did the best I could with the cards I was dealt? Like, what do you take away and grow with?
Yeah, I mean, my list is so long of things I learned in the race. I don't think there's much I would have changed on the day. Like in hindsight, it was what it was. The one thing that I do regret is I passed a bottle on the side of the road when I was in between mile 70 and 112 where that water was, and I saw that there was water in it. I should have stopped and grabbed it.
Lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, 200 miles under your belt, you and Marissa, it was both of your first time finishing that beast.
And Jenna never did it.
Oh, she didn't finish last year, did she? That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. All of you. That's awesome. Um, where do you go from here? Are you taking this and going on? Or are you like, oof? Here's why I ask. And this is a different subject, but I've climbed for 30 years with a 25-year hiatus. My son's back to rock climbing, and we just did a big trip out to South Dakota and Wyoming and Colorado for his graduation present. And I've always wanted to climb El Capitan, Half Dome, even the Diamond of Long's Peak. And we went out and did Devil's Tower, which is like a 600-foot climb. And I mean, you do 600 feet on El Cap, you're not even starting. And I got up to the top of that thing. It was a 12-hour day. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to do this again. And I don't need to do El Cap, Half Dome, or any of those. Like, I'm content. How are you? Does this drive you to want to do 200 miles again? Do you want to do the XL? Or are you like, I freaking like the 100-mile races?
I'll do Unbound again. I know I will. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm never going to do it because I'm going to do it anyways with how that has worked for me. I do think I have unfinished business there. This could be a really good race for me on the right day with the right things happening. So, yeah, just don't sign me up today because that would probably make me really sad. But when it's January and we're signing up again, I'll probably be putting my name in.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, it's kind of like after a marathon. Oh, when's your next marathon? Never. And then a month later, it's like, oh, there's another marathon this fall. Maybe I'll do. So yeah, totally get that. Hashtag too soon.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, listen, I know your power numbers are taking you to Colorado Springs potentially later. Tell me a little bit about that, and then I'll let you go because I think that's interesting.
I don't really know if I can say much about it. We can just leave it at, my coach and I have titled it Mission Critical.
Oh, wow.
And that's as much as anyone knows right now.
Okay, well then what's your Instagram account? How do we follow? Because now you've just piqued interest and intrigued us.
Yeah, Instagram is Danielle Ravnikar. And that's thanks to my teammate Nick Gould, who said, your last name Ravnikar is just perfect. Add a G in front of it, and now you're Ravnikar. It's like, all right.
I actually was going to ask if the G stood for gravel.
Yes.
Awesome. I love it. Well, congratulations on your finish. I know that you dug deep to leave that porta potty at mile 150. Yes. I'm proud of you, and I'm sure all of your teammates are proud of you for getting through this. And I'll be anxious to follow you as you continue your Ravnikar journey.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for having me today.
Danielle, thanks tons for coming on. I got fun news too. As the week after Unbound, she and her Mazda Orange Seal teammate, Jenna Reinhardt, took the top 2 steps of the podium at the Epic Bike Fest in northern Wisconsin. You can keep up with Danielle and the rest of the Mazda Orange Seal team by following them on Instagram. And you can look for Danielle at Danielle Ravnikar on Instagram as well. I love it. So you may have heard me reference Eno and Chase at Unbound a while ago. And as it turns out, those two are heading to Iowa City on August 17th to tackle the Core 4. Maybe we can talk Danielle, Jenna, and Marissa into doing so as well, because they are going to be racing the gravel, the pavement, the gnarly level B roads, and the single track, all while chasing a $10,000 prize purse. What? Yep. Core 4 is thrilled to announce a new title sponsor for the 100-mile route, River Products Company. The new Stone Crusher, presented by River Products Company, will celebrate a $10,000 prize purse shared equally between women and men. The purse will be distributed 10 deep among both podiums, so $1,000 for first place, $900 for second, and so on in $100 increments down to 10th place. This partnership honors the life of Chris Lillig and the Memorial Cup. His legacy has been carried through Iowa City's cycling community for decades through the Old Capitol Criterium and Jingle Cross. So it is an honor to have this celebration of life associated with Core 4. The Stone Crusher, presented by River Products Company, is considered Iowa's marquee cycling experience, and Core 4 is excited to create fandom by celebrating athletes and inspiring the next generation of cyclists. As always, Core 4 is committed to supporting the local cycling community through advocacy partnerships. Every year they activate initiatives to address socioeconomics, gender equality, and give back to bike-centric nonprofits, including local mountain bike group ICOR, the Iowa City Bike Library, Corridor Devo Junior Cycling, Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County Bike Club, the Iowa City Mountain Bike Club, and the Iowa Children's Museum. The folks at Core 4 value both supporting the cycling community and captivating healthy competition at Core 4. So I want to thank Core 4 for supporting Bike Talk with Dave, and you for supporting Bike Talk with Dave while getting a 14% discount. Again, the first 14 people to sign up at core4.bike get 14% off, and Core 4 will match that in support of Bike Talk with Dave. Now, in addition, if you want to make August a month of gravel, you can also head over to Lincoln, Nebraska after Core 4 to race the Gravel Worlds. Just use the code Bike Talk with Dave for 10% off when you sign up. Get it done and get ready for an epic August. Now, as far as this podcast goes, I'm sure it's your favorite, so I would really appreciate you tuning in each week, and I would really love it if you would rate and review this show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you want to support the show financially, I would love it. Just look for Bike Talk with Dave at buymeacoffee.com and drop a few coins in the cup. If you do, I'd love to send you a sticker. So be sure to check out the Bike Talk with Dave channel on YouTube, or go to biketalk.bike to stream every episode. That's it for this week. I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you have a great week. And remember, nothing compares with the simple pleasure of riding a bicycle.